What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the podcast. Notice I just called it the podcast because I'm doing some marketing changes and the name could be adjusted slightly in the coming weeks. Anyway, I just want to thank everybody for watching, listening, however you're doing it. Would like to ask if you're on the video option, please consider using the audio portion. It's on my website, bobbydizzle.com. Always to listen, of course, and always to watch, but the only way to watch is YouTube and Spotify. That's beside the point. Just do me a favor, share the episode, however you watch it, share it with your friends. Trying to get to 1 million over here, trying to make it my career. Maybe one day go on Rogan, who knows? You never know what'll happen. Anyway, tonight, if you like Stranger Things on Netflix, this is the real story. This guy explores the real history behind Stranger Things, what the story, the conspiracy theory, for lack of a better word, that inspired Stranger Things. His name is Brian Minnick. Runs the YouTube channel Montauk is Strange, and he was even on the CWs. I know a lot of people of a certain age never heard of the CW, but it's still around. It's a streaming service. I think it's actually still a channel. I used to watch it a lot in college. But they have a show called Mysteries Decoded, and this gentleman was on it, Brian Minnick, and was real good. The host of the show was actually Max's mom from Stranger Things, so yet another Stranger Things tie-in. So if you like Stranger Things, if you like a little history, a lot of conspiracy, and actual facts of what happens on Long Island, that it's not conspiracy and is actual history, check this episode out. You're going to love it. Please share it. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcast. Is it called iTunes anymore? And BobbyDizzle.com for all ways to share. Merch coming soon. Thank you. And let's talk about some Stranger Things, bro. And we're here with Brian Minnick, host of Montauk is Strange. You might have seen him on the CW with my podcast idol, Sam Tripoli, and the lady who played Max's mom on Stranger Things. I watched that episode I told you about 4 or 5 times. What's it called? Mysteries Decoded?
Yeah.
And I didn't realize it was Max's mom.
Yeah, Jennifer Marshall.
Showed up for a limited time.
Yeah, that's how they presented her to me. Like when they told me, that's who I'd be working with for the day or two, actually. But then I realized, she was also ex-Navy, so that threw another spin into it, which is cool.
Very random career she has.
Yeah, that is really.
I was like, how do you get up? Well, she's obviously, she's not ugly.
And actually, she's a private detective now, just to throw that on top of it.
That's terrifying. It's like she has a place in the Goonies or something.
So yeah, no, she's. So that was exciting just to work with both of them, and Sam threw the fun into the mix. So everything had.
I was so shocked when you told me that's who you were. I was like, "Holy crap! I've seen you on TV 15 times."
Yeah. Oh, so
I watched that episode a bunch.
I haven't really told people on YouTube much that I was on any shows, and likewise, none of Montauk is Strange, my channel, has never been said on any TV show. They did credit me at the end of the most recent one because I asked them to, but before that, they haven't been connected basically. But all the friends I've made online know me as Brian and everything, so now they're kind of being connected more. So it was kind of hard to find me. Plus, I was sitting on stuff for a long time and didn't share it, and that's on me. It was just waiting to do something with it, and then finally, I think the first show is what got me to finally start sharing this stuff because I've been researching.
A repository of that out there, people just sitting on information.
Yeah, I've been researching it hard. I mean, going there, over like 50 times back then in the 90s. And writing them all down, and then interviewing people, and once the internet was growing in the early 2000s, I was printing like stacks of paper and bringing them home at work, printing. So I was reading for years, and then I've been trying to keep up ever since. But I've just books of stuff, and got into the military history for a while, like the deep military history, like not the surface details. And I went to the library. I was like making a report basically, and I still have, and that really helped me with a lot of the story. Actually, looking at it from two sides, one, the realistic facts, and they kind of line up some of the times and dates, so it's really interesting with parts of the story that sound kind of crazy. So the whole thing is, to me, is fascinating, and it has a lot of facets. It goes into so many aspects of our modern world, really.
Now, do you have a wall full of yarn somewhere?
No, I just have, like I said, walls full of stacks of paper, and I just save everything. When I dig into something, I take copies of everything so I could like make a case with it later, kind of. I'm wondering myself, really. I want to know as well, so that's why I'm doing that. I don't want to just jump in and believe it if I could find out myself that it's not the case or it's something else, then I'm going to try to follow wherever that takes me. But personal ideas, like what I believe, I'll say maybe it's this, maybe it's that. I'll have 100, different possibilities and think they're all possible. So I try to keep both the abstract and the facts and mash them all together, kind of like that. But when it comes to Montauk.
Oh, you took Long Island Bigfoot and Dark Hour out there too, didn't you?
Yeah, we went out there 2 years in a row on like August 12th, which is like the day in this date of the Philadelphia experiment and the supposed date that the Montauk base was destroyed by Junior, he was the original Montauk monster before the carcass washed up on the beach. Junior was something that looked like a dogman or a Bigfoot, supposed to be an interdimensional being, so on and so forth. That was in the Montauk Project books. Mm-hmm. And then people forgot about Junior because of the Montauk Monster. But all that being said, when Stranger Things came out, the Demogorgon basically is the representation of Junior in the story.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, so
that's the creepiest thing. I was kind of just on the surface a Stranger Things fan, like it's Spielberg kind of thing. But then I found out it was real, and I started going down. Like, what are you talking about? I think that might have been Mysteries Decoded. Might have been where I realized that.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, but heard real life Stranger Things. Real life what?
Same here. I didn't know Stranger Things was based. It was originally called Montauk, and I didn't know it was based on any of this. It was originally set in Montauk instead of Hawkins. Like the original script just says everything was Montauk. They just kind of replaced it with Hawkins. But basically, what I was going to say is I saw Stranger Things all over the place. I didn't know what it was, and then somebody told me, that's supposed to be based on Montauk. I'm like, because they knew I was a Montauk, I was like obsessed with researching it and stuff. So they, I was like, holy crap. So I went and watched it right away, and I was happy to find all these little connections that I saw right off the bat. And they merged in things like Brookhaven National Lab nearby. They kind of mashed some stuff up, changed it like anything would. But I appreciated like all those details, and it's cool to see.
There's not nearly enough stuff out there about Brookhaven.
No. I mean, growing up here, I have a lot of family and friends who have been tied to it, work there at different parts of. They're all like basically what I'll say is all of our families are military. A lot of our families in the middle class of this area were military industrial employees, whether it was communications or some kind of outsourced, but it was, some kind of lower tier, maybe just a secretary, whatever the case may be, worked in one of these facilities. So Brookhaven, Montauk Air Force Station, the Suffolk County Air Force Base, and Plum Island, and Calverton had Grumman's where they built F-14s, and there's Nike missile bases. So it was like nothing but military out here for a long time until it started being like, normal. Some people, but now it's really filled with tourist properties going crazy, and it's like, the Hamptons are spreading off the South Fork, kind of like it's just like the two peninsulas we call them the North and South Fork, and Montauk's at the very end of the South Fork on Long Island, so it's the South Peninsula that goes out there, and that whole area now is just there's so many people there in the summer. It's amazing. What's
the word? Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
I love that show. Yes.
The gentleman. That's what Montauk reminds me of. It's out there on the tip of the ocean.
Yes, exactly. In fact, I wondered about that if it had some basis at one point. But Dark Hour Paranormal actually made music for that show when he worked at Cartoon Network. He was doing sound. Yeah, he makes like beats, kind of hip hop beats, and he makes all different genres of music actually. But he did do something for Aqua Teen Hunger Force, which is just
he was an awesome interview, man.
Yeah, he's really good with talking and with people and everything. I mean, he's filled with info too.
Smart as a whip.
Yeah, very, very.
I was gonna before we get we already started, but for the I debated it all day. I'm like, do we start like at the Montauk 101? But I think we will because it's not the most well known thing amongst
Absolutely.
the masses. So what is the act? What I was gonna have you give like a Montauk 101. Like what's the basis of it to get everyone started?
Sure.
Like
So,
what does everyone need to know about the Montauk mystery there?
okay, so basically, there's already from what I've found since there were rumors back in the 70s about stuff that happened at Montauk, like time travel, mind control. People that worked on the base and stuff like that started it, but unofficially, but officially, it started with the book series by Preston B. Nichols and Peter Moon. The Montauk Project Experiments in Time, it's called. And then there were follow-ups, part 2 and 3. And then there were spin-offs, and then there were other authors and guest writers. So it enveloped into this tree of books, and that's what really started, like, a lot of the first parts of the stories came from them. But there was a core story before that. That's like an asterisk, just so you know. Well, we could come back to that. So then there was nothing really at the time except for local legend and these books and local explorers like myself and other people, many people, and they would come out here. It was just a fascinating place that pulled a lot of people in to explore. The legends grew, and then at some point in the late 90s, other people started writing books about it. And when the internet started growing rapidly in the early 2000s, people were writing blogs about it, adding all of these other aspects. And around 2010, that's when, the 2010s, maybe actually 2014, Chris Garetano made Montauk Chronicles. The next year, Stranger Things. And then The Dark Files was like the last interview with Preston. He passed away. Al Bielek had passed away years ago. So really, there's not much left. So at this point, that's the whole timeline of how the story developed. But now Montauk, as far as an airbase, what it was, actually, the military history goes back to the beginning of our country, even before that, because the natives, the Native Americans here, the Montauk tribe, there were big wars here, before that. So there were colonial times. The British occupied the lighthouse for a while. So actually, if you look at all the military history, there's some serious developments, like after, like, basically 1898 on, they started testing like all the firsts in military, like the top secret weapons of every time were rolled out at Montauk, if not partially developed here. Like submarines around Tesla had Wardenclyffe in Shoreham, New York. That's the big tower where he transmitted free energy, or he was building to be the free energy tower. Well, the Navy blew that up in 1913. And that basically, yeah. And so Marconi, who he was in a patent war with, but also friends with, basically he had the Montauk Lighthouse itself rigged up with his antennas. Aleister Crowley was there in 1917 in the same year, hiding out. And so there's all these crazy things happening in Montauk constantly, every year, every era. There's a submarine base there basically in the 1930s. They had a seaplane base there in the 20s. I skipped over that. But basically on and on, they keep going. And the huge radar site there after World War II. World War II, they had giant offshore guns like cannons, and that's where you get a lot of the underground bunkers and infrastructure, like the first layers of them, which are like down 40 feet to 75 feet. And then after that, they started developing some more like radar tech and science, and they had a lot of the first rolled out there, like light pens, keyboards, partially like circuit boards, things like computer chips and other inventions that they had an MIT lab at Montauk. So that grew into the Sage Radar facility, where you got there was basically like 6 radome, a golf ball looking radars. They're like, it's like a white dome, a rubber dome around the golf ball. I mean, it looks like a golf ball, but it's like a rubber dome around the radar on a metal building. So there was like 4 of those at one time with the giant tower, the radar. So it was it was like one of the like most secure and most technological. There's inventions that we had at the time was this like high frequency diversity radar. So it couldn't be jammed or anything. So that was like a big thing at the time. But when they first developed that, it's basically oscillates through all the frequencies. So it hits the frequency that the human mind is on. They started noticing that affected people in cataloging it. Like this frequency makes them tired, this one makes them excited, etc. So it was just a bunch of empirical work for a long time, until the point where in like 1961, something from MK Ultra was done there that I have a lot of stuff on. And that was for a short period. They just came in, did it, and closed up. And that was the LSD rooms. There's pictures of them on some of these shows that they've shared, but they're basically, it's a house on the base. It's one of 13.
I've never heard of those LSD experiments.
Yeah, they did them there for a short trial. And the main thing was to be to do it in combination with an frequency diversity radar. So they can set the frequencies and then test with hallucinogens. Because even there was a guy at Harvard in the Harvard Psilocybin Project in 1961 that said they wish they can do tests with radio frequency with hallucinogens. And, that's kind of like hint, hint, but they can't officially do it through the school. So that was a good way to do it, because in that year, the base was shut down for a year. Because when they first put that was the first radar of Sage radar they put out into the field. So it had some problems. And they actually had to turn it off for a year to do like maintenance. And in that time, they did this, set up shop, did it, and then left. So they already had a pattern at Montauk for doing top secret stuff.
Wow.
And later on, they had anti-aircraft guns there with the radar site on the other side of the base. Later on, the Air Force took over everything, bought all the property to this, and then that's when they were doing top secret, top security until like 1969. Everything closed down, everything changed around here, and for 10 years the base was open, or no, like 12 years the base was open for no real reason, and that's when everything was lax on top. If there is an underground facility, they would have built it in that time, because that's the time everything on the surface became very relaxed. Kids were allowed to ride their bikes in and play. They were having bands on the weekend, and everybody in that time says nothing happened here. I even know some people that worked there in that time. And 1981 or to 83 is when the base supposedly was destroyed, and everything ended in a hurry, and everybody left in a hurry. And after that, it was a ghost town for many years, until around the 90s, the government started trying to clean it up, and it was a super fun site in the 90s. And then in the 2000s, they made it into a park, and that's where we are today. Now it's like a tourist attraction with all the people that come.
Yeah, it looks a little like run down. Like it'd be kind of dangerous to be out there.
It is kind of dangerous, very dangerous, especially if you go into the buildings, which you're not supposed to. But there's also ticks everywhere, which are very dangerous. Mm-hmm. I mean, lots of ticks there, and that's the thing. They say that they were invented on Plum Island or developed, and yeah, and that's why Montauk knee, they said, was before Lyme's disease or Lyme disease. In Lyme, Connecticut, they say was the first case. But other people say Montauk knee was something that the natives, not the natives, but the early fishermen reported in like the same time, or like a decade before or after the other one. But if you look in between those two locations, Plum Island is directly in the middle of Lyme, Connecticut, and Montauk. Mm-hmm. So I figure there's the Animal Disease Research Center, and all it takes is some ticks to get on a bird, and that's, they could spread from there. So that's my guess at it, because Plum Island just has you thinking on all kinds of stuff. There's not a lot of info on Plum Island.
And every time this subject comes up, something else I've never heard of gets. What the hell's going on Long Island? Jesus,
it is.
I didn't know they had Sasquatch out there.
Yeah, I mean, I believe that there's things that are in basically half in, half out of our dimension, maybe another, but basically they're not always here. They come and go. And I really started believing that after watching there's some things on physics where they show you how you pass a 4D object through 3D and what it looks like. Or if you take a 3D object like a ball and pass it through a piece of paper, at first it looks like a dot, and then it grows bigger, the circle. And then as you pull the ball through the equator, like of the ball, it's the biggest the circle will get. And then you pull out the other side and it gets smaller and turns into a dot again, and then it's gone. And if you think about how UFOs, ghosts, Sasquatch all kind of go, sometimes you see things get bigger and smaller and then disappear. But I wonder what it looks like if 4D object passes through a 3D space like we're in. What would that look like? And maybe that's why we see things anywhere and anytime. It's just a many guess things I think about. I'm not saying that's the case.
Oh yeah, well, on this show we call it the veil.
Oh, good.
The in and out. Just
nice.
The technology used for stuff to happen. So
exactly, yeah.
Sasquatch just need an area where nobody's at to mess around. Just
Yeah,
a couple of minutes. They don't even care if it's in the middle of a subdivision, as long as it's like an acre or two if nobody's there.
yeah. There's got to be some kind of method to it. You know, I can't wrap my head around it either. But I noticed, like, it seems like the rock throwing thing happens a lot when people are armed. I've been trying to pay attention to whether or not they're armed when rocks are tossed, and that's always something I wonder.
Armed or being really just bad attitude.
Bad attitude. Or, you know, we had a rock tossed once, and I got it on tape, and it landed just by our feet, but it was like a light pebble toss. Like, kind of like, hey. It wasn't, like, threatening. But I have never, thank God, you know, seen any others. And not many knocks either. But I did get some strange really amazing stuff on tape with Mike. Actually, he gave me his copy of it because I didn't get that one, but we did get a deer with this long black fluffy thing bouncing off its head or back, like hair or another animal. But as it runs, it kind of changes, and then the deer's just gone. And then a moment later, my wife Danielle, that also is part of our channel, really, she's with me, you know, on everything. But she said, look at back there on the bottom right of the screen, there was this, you could see actually flesh and blood, what looked like for the first time, like right there. Like it almost looked like you could touch it. And I see these really thick legs, and it steps back, you know, like out of our way. And then moments later, we lost that. And then you see this conical head, like very close behind some trees, walking past. And it was amazing. Yeah, I slowed it down, zoomed in. And that was one of the times I thought I got something like right there instead of just like cloaked or, you know, half in, half out. So that's Mike's famous. It's his famous deer experience. Yeah, that's one of them.
Like talking about.
I think so. Maybe
he told me I don't want to talk about it.
It actually gave me. I was thinking about it for days. It actually made me feel weird too, because right after that, I got 30 seconds of EVPs, and they didn't sound like nice EVPs that time. And it was a mix of couple voices. And then that video got stuck on my camera. My camera malfunctioned. The Wi-Fi light turned on. I couldn't turn it off. And then for like days, it wouldn't turn on. And when I got the chip out, I took the video and I erased everything off it. I threw it in the trash, erased it, and then it kept coming back. And to this day, every time I erase it, that video just won't go on the camera, and I can't use it. So it's like burned into the chip forever, that video.
I believe it. It's got to work something like the Tesseract on Interstellar.
Yeah. I mean, it does make sense.
They have to have access to all things at all times they go over there. That's how they can pull stuff off chips and memory cards instantly that just happen.
You're right.
Yeah, it's got to be something like that, because it happens too. It happens on Skinwalker all the time.
Yes, it does happen there, and that place is fascinating. I mean, with a
Travis
long history.
Taylor's from this town I'm in here.
Is he really? I love how we love Travis Taylor.
I think I made him mad because I had a debunker on here one time for Skinwalker.
Oh yeah, okay.
I didn't know she was a debunker, and so like I posted on Twitter, and Travis was like, "This is horse shit." I'm like, "Oh God, please don't hate me! Please don't hate me!"
Oh yeah, is that the first time he's responded to, like, in the same thing that you posted?
I wasn't really trying. I was just promoting my channel, and so I'm like, "Oh, is Skinwalker real or not? Find out here."
Yep.
And he just happened to respond, and I'm like,
"Oh man,
my chances of
that first impression." But
he's 15 miles away.
You didn't. I'm sure he knows. He didn't know. He's probably just. But yeah, I mean that's.
He probably doesn't care.
He probably doesn't remember at this point with all the stuff in his head.
Yeah.
But that's a great show.
A company that works in my building.
Does he really? Oh, that's cool. He's got so many degrees, like PhDs, and just. But the main reason I like him is he says a lot of the stuff that I come up with crazy stuff sometimes, and sometimes you hear him like verify these ideas, like we all think them, and to hear it from somebody more official is better.
He really does, and he'll say things like that we all talk about. I say we. I'm an observer at best.
You could say
at best. But the stuff that I hear people like you and the dozens of other people I've had on here say the same thing in one way or another, and like that's just too much of a coincidence. Yes. And then Travis Taylor goes on Rick and Bubba, which is a local radio show just down the road.
Yep.
And for one of their podcasts, and says the same shit.
Exactly.
Just in a more scientific thing. When they talks about, they took a picture of that anomaly that had something happen, and it was, and they took the star chart. That's what it was. There's a star chart. You look up at the.
Yes. Star, yeah, I love astronomy. Yeah.
The star next to the anomaly got removed from the database of that app. real time.
That's right. I saw that. That was
Freaked me out.
See, there's like hacking, and it's funny. You just made me think of it, but like that was not Wi-Fi, like I said, it was Bluetooth on that camera that time. And just think of how Bluetooth or Wi-Fi work anyway. It's a beam, it's transmitted through the air. There's code, and I saw these people that make Bluetooth and Wi-Fi antennas out of like copper wire. They just bend them. It has to be a certain pattern. And I was looking at those patterns, and some of them look like the structures you see in the woods, and we've done testing a lot to see that it's live wood, and that live wood transmits electricity, and a lot of the structures are always, fresh wood that snapped. And it was interesting because I was like thinking of Avatar, and then because I like mushrooms a lot too, so mycelium underground is the network that connects like through the whole forest, and that conducts a lot of electricity, and that's attached to the trees, and live wood conducts electricity. And then if you bend things in a shape, like you ever see in the jungle, like some of the special forces have these special backpacks that are for radio, and it's just like a bunch of wires and stuff, but you could bend them. You have to know what shapes to put the wires in, like the jungle antennas, to get different frequencies. And that's how you can make Wi-Fi, cable, different ways to pick stuff up. I was just thinking about shapes and electric in different shapes, and like the stuff you see in the woods. And it might be the case that there's more to it in many all around of, I don't know, that was just an idea about the structures, but as far as
it's definitely possible.
Yeah, I mean,
those bands look like Vietnam radio antennas.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to really catalog them and try to see the difference between them all and do the work, but I don't know, man. I'm always coming up with stuff like that. But then there's things about Montauk. When I try to, people that are new to it, I try to, answer their questions would be better, because it's such a deep topic and it could go anywhere. You want to feel out what the person's really interested in. If they're just interested in what happened in the military there, I could tell them that. Or if they're interested in the top secret stuff, I could tell them that too. But I only believe personally what I can find and verify. And then I have my theories like we're talking about that are just free-floating theories, But I think to make the case to normal people, it's best, like people who are totally skeptical, that's where it's best to start with all the facts and just give them like the hardcore stuff that they could just go look and find themselves, basically.
What about, remember that, remember you're on the show, the new power meter that was put in? Yeah, that's... That grabbed my attention. I'm like, the government just doesn't do shit. Like I've worked for the Army for 20 years. That's a funny story, because the kids... Yeah. On there, I became friends with him. Mark, he's like a filmmaker now. But he had the picture on his phone, and I had my whole backpack of stuff, and I was showing him I had black and white dark pictures I took in photography and printed in the darkroom back in like high school of the meter. It was brand new because I was there the week before with my friends at Montauk at Camp Hero, running around, and we met all these kids that lived on the base housing, which is this little part of the base that's kind of connected. And they were like a pack of wild kids, and they smashed the electric meter and broke the glass on it. And we were like, oh my God, So we went back because my friend's father, another friend, his father worked at Roehl, which used to be the Long Island Lighting Company. And that's the blue tag that was on the meter. So I took pictures of this meter in black and white, printed it, and they just replaced it like a week after they broke it. And we got the tag number and had my friend's father look it up, and it said classified or something along the limits of classified or, restricted, something like that. And he worked there a long time. He didn't have access to the info. So that was the only interesting thing. But over the years, they've replaced that. Joe Lafreno, who was on some other shows, he worked on the base, and he says he was part of the project. That's like a whole nother, topic. But he also had a picture of a digital, he was the one that had it on actually the show we're talking about on, Mysteries Decoded. It was Joe Lafreno that had the picture, right? No, actually, that was the guy they met in the bar. I can't remember.
Okay, yeah, you're right. Strange World, Chris Garitano's show, had Joe Lafreno with the digital meter. And basically, he was showing again that they just put a brand new head on that turned digital because it was like the newest kind. And it still had power running to it, which is strange because I've been in that building a lot. And I couldn't see why they'd still have power anywhere on the surface.
Did you go up to the meter and see if it was spinning?
It was never spinning. It just had a reading on it, like it was taking up power at some part of the day. Okay. Was it like sitting there like when you go out now
if you have a light on in your bathroom, it's still just doing a little bit.
No, it's not. Yeah, I was looking for that, and the dial wasn't moving at all. And
okay. Yeah, I mean, I will give a caveat because the government will, as long as if a building is still, in their contract. I mean, that might be out for 50 years.
Yeah.
This contract for this building and the company like Wilco.
Yep.
The Army bases contract out these different utilities and whatnot. So maybe they just it needs to be a new meter no matter what, even though
you're right. That maybe they paid in advance for so long and they're just like, that company's gone now. So it's now National Grid. It's actually PSEG. That's what it is. So whatever, they're doing it for. But I see people always argued that there was no basement. And I asked architects, they said you cannot just sit a giant building like that. That's bomb-proof, like blast-proof. It's made to withstand a significant blast. So you can't just sit that on the sand like that. It's ridiculous. It has to have giant pilings that are half the size of the building going down. But also there's basement levels. And they always said, no, there's no basement. And I've actually got on video back in the 90s where they had opened this little trench. It was like a way to go into the basement with a door on the side. And then it was full of water, but it was open for a week, came back a week later, it was cemented over. But recently, I filmed and part of the radar I'd never seen before, which is the way to go up and down, one of the ways to go up and down into the basement. And I matched it up with, there's another Sage Tower, right? There was only 12 of them in the US, the same kind as the Montauk radar. The Montauk radar is the only one left still standing. So I went into one they took the radar off the top and the building is still there. And this guy lived in it and he was collecting all this stuff like a yard sale, like a hoarder kind of, but he had nice stuff. It was just a lot of it and through the whole radar. And when he sold it, they took pictures because the real estate sites always have to take pictures of the whole house in the building. So they went in the basement and took pictures all in this basement. And now I have pictures of what the basement is in the Montauk radar because the buildings are built identical, like cookie cutters. They have one blueprint. I have the blueprints, and then they made 12 buildings, and they're all identical. Really? So now I have
an oversight.
I got pictures of now what it looks like in the first level basement of Montauk at least, and nobody can say it's not in there because I just went and verified from the top by filming all the spots. And we tried to go to the top on the last visit, and the stairs on the top levels are just completely gone. Like 6 levels of stairs are just non-existent. So it's just the bars on the sides. And for a long time, kids were putting like pieces of flimsy metal and things like to try to cross on boards. And it's dangerous, obviously very dangerous. And now I don't even think it's possible. Unless you're like a ninja with like a rope ladder. I don't know how somebody
would. It's got to be pushing 50 years old.
Yeah, it was built in 1960, so more 60 years, 63. Actually, they started building it in like 59, and it was running and broke down in 61, and then it was fully running by 62 for 20 years. So, man, it's very old, and I heard concrete only lasts for 60 years, or at least that's like what old Ayurvedic texts say, that concrete lasts 60 years, and then it's not you can't count on it after that. But this concrete has rebar in it. Yeah. But it's open to the weather, and that's what's destroying it all. They left the hatches open, they locked the radar in place, so now the wind is just ripping the pieces off. And at any given time, if you're standing there, a big giant shard can come down. They're all laying around the radar. So I guess that's why they don't want people in there. It's very dangerous. And then me and LIB went into one building this past summer where it was just filled with like black mold, and it was so bad in there. I regret going in, but I hadn't been in there in so long. I just went in and I didn't think I should have worn my mask or something. Yeah, man, it was terrible.
Smell what it smells like. I grew up going to old storm cellars when it would storm.
Did you?
And it was just all. I'm like, I'd rather brave the storm than be in here.
Yeah, that's. I know what you're saying. I don't know why I even did it, but sometimes you just get drawn in when you're into something, But
that kind of stuff is worth it. You're built to handle a little bit of black mold.
Yeah. So we went into another building with black mold too after that, and but that one had a like PCB leak in the basement at one point because we had pictures of the last guys in there where the Army Corps of Engineers had these big white Tyvek suits, and they had pictures of them horsing around in there. But they had like a big report I downloaded. But then we were in there just like, you know, I'm thinking these guys are all in protective suits and here we are like idiots, you know. But that supposedly they cleaned up some stuff, and, you know, they're still cleaning it up until like 2035 or something, I think it goes to. But the place is... How many
buildings they got over there in that complex?
There used to be about 130. Now there's about 12. And there's 5 main bunkers, but there used to be like 13 other little substations that were like houses. There's still, some of them are still there. One was on Seinfeld once they rented, but it was like a concrete bunker within a house. So it looked like a regular house, but there's like watchtowers and weird slits under the roofline that, you know, they had, some of them had searchlights. Some of them were like to help the guns, tell them where to shoot, stuff like that. They were all worked together with Camp Hero. And that's crazy because the cables, the phone cables run all the way like through towns away just from Camp Hero. And there's also this other massive underground bunker on Camp Hero's site that's not really connected, but it's the AT&T Long Lines building. And like back then the US had so many, and they're these huge, like, it's like 2 gymnasium sized rooms, like huge roofs, and they have a bunch of pillars, and it's just to keep the coaxial cable connected. Like, you know, the thing you put in the back of your TV, basically, with the copper wire, and you screw it on. Yeah, the coax. I mean, all this whole thing, everything's on springs, like the lights, the toilet bowls, the circuit breakers, on big springs in case the building gets hit by a blast. And they have like barrels of water and crackers everywhere. And there's one of these at Montauk. So Joe Lafrino actually took me into the building that I was never able to get into when we were exploring, because that was the guardhouse, we called it, because there was a state trooper, a New York state trooper, that lived in that building with his dog, and he was living. So why does they made it a county park in 1980, supposedly, but it wasn't actually accessible to the public until 2000. So in the state law says 85% of a park has to be accessible to the public, but 0% was for all those years. So I've got arrested there and got a trespassing ticket but technically I shouldn't have been, but I was the guy that he lived in that house. The state trooper is the one that gave us the tickets, and I actually became friends with him during the CW of filming. They had him there, they interviewed him, they didn't use it, but I said, hey, yeah, I think you arrested me, and he was like, oh yeah, he's like, sorry about that. He's like, I had to, and then we were talking about the base. So he was a cool guy, and I put that on YouTube. It was on TV, so now it's all out there, that I was there. It's way past the statute of limitations or anything. So the point is, I was never able to get in that building. It was always fascinating. So when I find out it was this AT&T building, telco building, and there's this bunker underneath, I was trying to find the spot, and we could not get to that part. There's a wall, there's a window there against the wall, and on the other side the same, but there's a big space between from the outside. And on the inside, he let me go crawl into the basement on like down a hatch. And there was nothing, just like a crawl space. But there was this one section I couldn't get in. And that's where there should be the staircase and a freight elevator. That's it. So one day, maybe I could get back, but he doesn't work there anymore. So that video is probably the only time I'll ever see in that building. But I'm always trying to find the underground, the official underground that's on record, and then the supposed underground that everybody talks about. People just come out and they say, oh yeah, there's 7 levels and it goes this way and that way. But there's no way they could really know that. But there is a way you can guess that they did do that. And then by knowing where the real things are, you could subtract that. So say that the thing you're guessing that is there is not in the places that something is there. Basically working backwards is what I'm trying to do. And that's my main reason I'm fascinated with underground base there. But I'm not going to just say that, just for entertainment's sake, that it's a certain size or depth until I can. But what I'm finding along this way is very fascinating, and it is kind of leaning towards showing that there definitely is a lot more, or was a lot more down there. I couldn't say.
Do you think it's all decommissioned, even the secret squirrel stuff, or is there any kind of activity going on today?
I know the vibe feels different. Like going there, it used to feel so weird. Like you always felt like everybody's watching you, and you still do to some extent. But now it feels more like a natural vibe, like nature is taking over or something like that. And it seems more supernatural now. But back then it felt more menacing. I don't know if that makes sense. And kind of like depressing. And there's all kinds of weird suppressive kind of... People always talk about the energy, even if you don't kind of normally feel energies or talk about them or believe in them. People would always say that when I read their reports about going there. They would always say that they got, this kind of feeling, a dark feeling, But I feel like that is kind of lifted, and maybe that means that there isn't a presence there anymore, like a secret military presence. I'm guessing that they finally left because the things they developed at Montauk have spread around the planet. Basically, if you look at cell phone towers, I mean, they're microwaves on a stick, but they're just microwave transmission. I mean, everything. And if they know that that affects the mind, I mean, if they've cataloged things so far back, like in the 50s, and they started realizing this, do you think they ever stopped? You know, they just took it further and further and found out more and more. And they've only told us, you know, the bare minimum. When we do find out new technology, it's usually like a decade after they've already developed
decade
it.
is the earliest.
Yeah, and a couple of decades since they thought of it and started working with it.
Me and Dark Owl were talking about the 50-year rule. However we think they have is 50 years.
That's no more like it. I agree with you. Yeah, 50 years.
You're talking about shooting down cylindrical objects over Canada.
Yeah, they won't even tell us what these objects are, which is insane. I mean, that right there is a clue because they always come right out and tell us it's a balloon or it's always a weather balloon.
What year, you were talking earlier about the development of, did anything happen out there like between 1900 and like the end of World War I?
Yeah, that was the wireless telegraph era. And basically that had a lot to do with Tesla and his tower too, and Marconi.
You said Tesla. Okay.
Yeah,
I was listening. I forgot.
Yeah, no, it's a good question because most of the stuff gets, you know, because when you think of a past technology that was to us right now, it's like, oh yeah, so what? You know, it's like everybody has a radio, but when it was first something, you know, it was amazing. So out here, there's a place in Rocky Point called RCA, and that was Marconi's. And then there was one in Riverhead where I went to school, and that was two of these were the receiver and the transmitter for the first overseas radio transmissions to Europe and back. And also one of the three radio, I don't know if it's a radio telephone, another version of the first of something, like as far as radio, there was a McKay radio tower in Montauk, and Marconi sent the first transmission to, there was one to Georgia, one to North Carolina, or one from Montauk to Maine, Montauk to Georgia, and then from one to the Eiffel Tower. That's the one that got all the attention. But they were developing everything like they developed at Montauk was definitely like ahead of its time. So that pattern should continue if through logic, you know, like whatever they did there into the last minute was probably way ahead of its time. Also, the placement of Montauk was always considered the entrance to New York City, the harbor, the Sound. It's the entrance to the Sound and the New York Harbor on the south side, like coming up below Long Island. So it was the guard for the United States Northeast for a long time, the point. So it was always a strategic place. From the time we started the country, there was cannons, you know, at the lighthouse. George Washington commissioned the lighthouse, and the lighthouse was like the first Statue of Liberty for people, immigrants coming to the New World. They would look for the light, the Montauk light, to find their way to New York Harbor. And then finally, it was the Statue of Liberty in a sense, you know, it was the guiding light. But the location is what I'm getting at, was important. So why did they just supposedly just leave it like it was nothing? And, you know, why did they say that the base didn't have any major role in anything in the 70s? So what I think they did is when the big shutdown happened in 1969, they actually put the base into ADTAC, which means it's ready to be closed. But it was there, like I said, for 12 years. I think they were just a front on the top, and they were allowed to just, you know, kick around and maintain some simple things or whatever they did. I'm not sure. It wasn't important anymore. But down below in this new facility, they just went deeper. That's where they were doing remote viewing and other things they were doing in the 70s. Particle energy weapons, basically directed energy weapons. And I was going to DARPA's website, our own government's research, the top research agency, where they develop all our weapons, a lot of our tech. And they say their top achievement in 1961 was Project Agile. And in that, it says mind control or mind manipulation, something to that effect, when they're listing all the things in Project Agile. And, you know, so I started looking in the 70s, and they said they were looking into directed energy weapons. So then I said, I'm looking there to try to figure out what they did possibly at Montauk in that era. Because it's just, if they're saying they did it, you know, then why not don't say they didn't do it at Montauk? So if they had an underground facility there, they were probably doing whatever was, you know, the thing in the 70s. But in the 80s, you know, that's when time travel was they were probably always trying to manipulate time ever since the Philadelphia experiment, if that was a definite. Then, Einstein's electromagnetic bottle, but there's the Einstein-Rosen bridge, so they took a lot of his, right before World War II, they had Tesla died in 1939, and Einstein worked on one of the 3 projects that were supposed to end the war, World War II. So one was the Manhattan Project, but there were 2 others. They never said what they were. So a lot of people guess one was invisibility, the Philadelphia experiment. And I haven't heard a lot of people guess about what the 3rd one is, but I'm imagining, I've imagined a lot of things.
They were doing something with time. It was one of his things.
Yeah, they've always wanted, the power of trying to manipulate the time stream, of course. But I think if it was discovered at some point, it could have been accidental. And in the CW too, they ask, they tried to, I don't know if they tried to catch me out there and ask me, what do you think about time travel? But I was thinking, I'm not just going to say, I love the thought of time travel and, paradoxes and all kinds of what could go wrong with it. What happens if, you go back and see yourself, and if you change the branch of time, how many, do you create a new universal dimension, or do you just alter the same time? There's so many things you could think about when it comes to time. But they asked me, and I basically didn't want to just say yes. So I said, I know it takes a lot of energy, and you need a top secret place to try to work on this. And Montauk fit the bill for the top secret place. But I was thinking, people will say we don't have that much energy, we can't generate enough to create time travel. But at the end, they asked Michio Kaku, and he said the same thing. It takes a tremendous amount of energy. So I was like, all right, good. They didn't catch me out there on that one. But the main thing about it is that now fusion shows that the potential energy in every cell we have is enough to power so much more than anything we could even muster on this planet. So think if you split an atom, you get an explosion. So our body is made of how many atoms? And if you think of potential energy versus kinetic energy, the potential energy we have to explode every atom into a nuclear bomb is a lot of energy. And then the recent discovery of fusion kind of plays into that in different ways. So it just shows that there's a lot of potential and hidden energy. So maybe, and Joe Lofrano said, this is the connection to it all. Joe Lofrano said on his interview on one of the 2 shows he was on, that people were linked together as batteries, like human batteries, to power this. They were using their mind or their thought and mental power, whatever it was, life power. So, it sounds crazy. It sounds like the Matrix for a second. No, I believe Joe. He's definitely a believable person, but I'm saying to the average person, maybe it's out there. But then if you think about it, that's exactly what they're saying by the potential energy in people, so who knows if this was a thing or not. It could have been possible, but I think, a lot of it was by accident. They discovered a lot of things by accident and just rolled with it. That's probably what I would go with if I was going to try to take a real guess at what, if it happened. That's how I think it happened.
That does sort of go back to what Sam Tripoli says, that we're getting kept from knowing what we actually are as a species.
Absolutely. Yeah.
All that potential energy, how we're basically gods, but they won't let us know it. Yeah,
because you use how much of your brain? There's a big percentage of your brain that you're not using. And there's a large percentage of DNA that they call junk DNA. It's just because we don't know what it does or what it is and what it knows. DNA even looks like one of those shapes, the antennas we were talking about. Yep. We're connected to everything, and you can, they say you can ascend into a point where you're using all of your mind and none of your body. So you just become, if we used 100% of our mind, we become a being of light, a beam and a being of light. I don't know if it's a photon or a beam or whatever shape, how it presents itself, but you wouldn't need a body. You'd become just energy, pure energy. So they actually say that in science too. So it's not just some crazy theory, but they say it's impossible to get there, but nothing is impossible really. And there's a movie that happened in, what was it? Powder. Do you remember that movie Powder? At the end, he runs. Yep. And he uses his whole, he becomes pure energy at the end, and he just ditches his body and just goes 100% mind.
Was intense.
Yeah, it was.
I've only seen it twice. I couldn't watch it.
It's one of those. I just thought of it because that ending is one of those scenes that kind of show exactly what we're talking about.
And like K-Pax and Limitless.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that was another one. That was amazing. And that was another display of time, like how you experience time changes time. So there's those moments where you see things in slow motion and you're like, but then there's those moments where things go by so fast. So it's like all your it's perception based, and really just time is all at once. So like we're just the way humans are, we experience things, we chop it up. So it's like we see things in a series of moments, this moment, then the next one, then the next one. But really it's just always now. Like you could never get to there because you're always here. And like today will be yesterday. I'm just messing. You can say all kinds of things that'll just twist us in knots with time.
Used to say slow is Christmas. Now Christmas is fast.
Yeah, that's one.
How does that work? Christmas is like every 3 months now.
Oh yeah, Christmas it lasts for like 3 months too. It starts in like after Halloween now, and it goes to like.
I used to thinking it took 5 years between each Christmas. Now
then there's like Christmas in July.
Christmas again.
Yeah, people are buying gifts in the summer, and I'm not like that though. I always wait.
I was asking about that Tesla thing.
Yeah,
because it seems like I've had a couple of people on here talking about that same, not Tesla, but how we started getting squashed vibrationally around 1910.
Oh wow, okay.
And before that, you had your World's Fairs, you had your Tartaria mud flood, what have you, and it seems like after Teddy Roosevelt got out of office,
that's interesting.
For some reason, they tried to squish the human mind. Like that's right when it started.
That's very interesting because Teddy Roosevelt had a big part of Montauk too, and like
he was like the last wild person, I guess you could say, last free thinker. Yeah,
he they named this road in the base after him, Roosevelt. They had a couple of the Rough Riders and Rough Riders Road. That was his like troop of people, and like the VFW was created in Montauk because like Teddy Roosevelt's best friend died of starvation because they had a big tent city and all these people were coming back, and like it was a big camp of sick and dying soldiers, and like because they were coming, but they were the first foreign veterans to return from a foreign war, from the Spanish-American War. Yeah. But after that, he became president. Right after that, and then another Roosevelt, FDR, was also hanging out in Montauk, right where Camp Hero is, where there's a bunker now, but it used to be a windmill house, and his best friend lived there. Lathrop Brown had a house there. So there's all these powerful people that have dipped into, been on Camp Hero as well, presidents included. And I think they actually had I've been investigating this one bunker I went into in 1988 as a kid. I was like 12 years old or something, and I was with three friends. And we basically, long story short, we walked through this bunker with no flashlights. There was like a small hole we climbed in. And at one point, the whole hallway was caved in from wall to wall. So we like walked over some rebar over this pit, hanging on the wall and pulling each other over. And there was like wind blowing up. So we're like, how deep is this? We drop a brick, and it was like 3 or 4 stories down before it hit water. We counted by the seconds, like 3 or 4 seconds. A long wait. And then we were like, oh my God, we almost all just died, falling in this. Nobody would find us. And so we were like, we can't go back over that. So we kept going through the dark until we found like light, and we crawled up sand and out through this hole right onto the beach. And there's this guy looking at us like strange. We just kids crawling out of the ground. but that changed me, man. That stuck with me forever because I felt like there was something in there with us. I like pictured it looking at us and what it looked like. But it was probably just my imagination. But later on, I was looking like, what is under there, And through all my digging in the history and stuff, all the research, I have ideas. I've been interviewing people who have been in there, but I can't really find out what is down there at that time. They even wanted to build it into a Nike missile base, but then it became obsolete. The weapons became no longer, they didn't need it. So, but that's probably wanted to use that because there was already something down there. And that's where Roosevelt, FDR, and the other guy, Lathrop Brown, who was like the head of the Navy, and these guys are like super powerful. And I think they made that into something. That's basically what I'm getting at. Because down on the beach, there's also these like things that look like caves, but there's also these hoodoos. They're like clay things on the beach at Montauk. And there's this one spot, they look like cement. Like if you go knock on them, they don't feel like the clay mud. They feel like actual cement versions. So some people have noticed them and seen them. And I think that might have been a way to go in on the beach level and get up to the top of the bluff somehow. And maybe, I'm sure it had other purposes, but I do believe that at one point you could do that there. So to me, I'm making a map. I just want to like make this map of everything I know is there underground at Montauk in different levels. That's like my main thing I'm working on, because I think people would like that, because I could show them with facts what's definitely there. And it's pretty surprising, because they always say there's nothing underground. I have like 4 or 5 levels in different spots that are on the record, including some freedom of information files that vets of the base shared with me, and shows fallout shelters, all kinds of cool stuff. And
especially back in the days.
Yeah, and I don't think I could get into some of them now. They're flooded, they're in bad shape, but I would go into like any tunnel back then with my friends. If we saw one, we would be in it. So we did get a couple on video, but that's the thing I didn't really
risking your life at a level you
could fathom. At 16, we probably would have had a very short life if we did stupid things back then. But
it must have been really easy to fool the public back then with that kind of stuff.
To fool the public?
Yeah, just to hide things like that in plain sight.
You can't even see the radar when you're driving to Montauk. It's barely like people that lived out here. A lot of them didn't even know there was a radar there, including myself. When I went there in 1988 and climbed into the tunnels with my friends, we just were on bikes. We found it, and I knew there was like an old World War II kind of base. I didn't know there was a radar though. I had no clue until that book came out, and my friends were like, "Yeah, there's a huge radar there too." So, it's very well hidden. It's easy to. I guess if your family didn't work there or something, you didn't know about it, you wouldn't know at all. And it's actually disguised like a lot of them are disguised like little fishing houses and stuff, like I said, they're bunkers. So they really went all out to disguise it.
I'm looking at some of the pictures of the landscape by that place now. Yeah, it's nothing for miles.
Yeah, it's like 700 acres now, the Camp Hero State Park. 768 acres. So being that I went to the radar and tunnels so many times, I go off trail. I go down all these new trails they made, and I used to always want to go through those parts of the base. So now I'm going like finding all the old historical structures, and in the process, I'm getting crazy stuff in the skies. I got a few UFOs already on video. Like, it's insane. Whispers, like some EVPs in the woods, a few things moving in the trees. I mean, the whole range of stuff. Sometimes I go to the Montauk Lighthouse webcam and I just look, right? And one day I see this big, tall figure standing on the rock. There's always this rock in the water, and it's just standing there. It's really tall. It's way taller and skinnier than a human. And it's standing there for about a half an hour, and the waves are splashing off it, and it's just swaying a little. And I check all the time now. I check like every couple days, and it's never there again. But there's this story of this small-headed ghost that floats down where the cliff used to be. It's kind of like in the air, and it has like a light and a boat hook. So I did like a little video on everything I could find on it, but there's also, other things, and I'm trying to figure out what I saw there. And I think it's just a place where there's just so many things. We might all be seeing different things each time because there's a lot of activity there, and I've heard so many stories from people about different stuff. It's fascinating. I mean,
I wonder if that's not some kind of quartz or crystal.
We just found, I almost have it right next to me, but we found these pieces all over that are this big, giant quartz crystals. And I went yesterday with my wife to the base. I'm just shutting my window. It's a little cold. But we went to the base yesterday, and we put a dosimeter, like radiation testing stick, on this rock that has this big vein of quartz, purple and amethyst quartz running through it. It's all in a vein, like big pieces. And when I took it off, it actually had like 40 Roentgens, which is like a measurement of, it's kind of like sieverts or one of those measurements of radiation. But it was emitting some low radiation, the quartz, out of the rock, which is really weird because we just randomly did that because we found these old pens that I had for years. So I said, let's throw it on there. But I don't know, man. There's definitely a spot, where we tested a rock on the dark files, and it had uranium in it. So it was giving off, because we told them we used to feel sick when we raced around this circular road and sat on the rock. And then we found out the rock had radiation coming out of it. So that might have been why, or
that checks out. I mean, it's
like crazy
Skinwalker Ranch kind of feel to it.
It really does. There's a lot of weird, there is really. And, that I haven't seen like animal mutilations or anything like that, but there is a lot of weird stuff in the sky there. In fact, like I found all these old historical documents again about UFOs at Montauk. I found 18 different UFO reports. Some of them were like mass sightings. In 1966, I think, that whole year, there was like a whole bunch in that year, like a flap. And then the first two are the most interesting. In 57 and 58, they sent it directly to the White House because Montauk radar picked up the incoming over the ocean, and they passed it on to the next radar and and it went across the U.S. like 6,000 miles an hour. And they sent the report right to the White House because they thought it was some kind of new Russian or German tech. It was in the Cold War, so Russian. And then again, the next year, this almost identical report, except it went up and they tracked it up like near Michigan, Ohio, Canada. And that was another instance where they sent it to the White House. And they were top secret at the time. They're redacted and they're out there. You could search them. But I found this whole bunch of stuff, about UFOs at Montauk. And then I actually caught one with a long time ago in 2004. But then over 2 summers ago, we went with Peter Moon, and he was with us in the car. He wrote, the Montauk books, basically, with Preston Nichols. So he was in the car talking, and Dark Hour Paranormal was in the car, and my wife and myself, and we were just driving, and she films, and I got partially on video, but she got a better one. 2 UFOs by the radar. One like zips by so fast and then goes higher and then zips off. The other one drops down out of the sky by the radar and then makes a right angle turn and accelerates that way. And they put them on Science Channel, Sci-Fi Network in the UK, and Science Channel on. It's like a Discovery Network. It was a MK Ultra special, but they put that clip in there too because I couldn't get the little white highlight on to track it. It was going so quick. But the point is, since then I got even more. Like one time I'm just zooming on a seaplane that was going by, and this round thing goes flying past. So I like slowed down, zoomed in, and it looks like a little ball that just goes past the plane out of nowhere. And then a couple other times since then, I've caught something weird up there. I mean, none of them are like a perfect metal disc. None of them are. It's just kind of like a light or a little white object that kind of looks like metal. It's got a shadow on one side.
It's a hot spot for them.
Yeah, there's something.
That'd be a sensitive spot.
There's something going on out there. So I just go out there with no plans. Usually, sometimes I just go to film like an old location that was part of the base for like the informational part of it, and then stuff just kind of whatever we find or see, we just tape. And as far as Bigfoot and stuff, I've learned a lot in the past since I met LIB. Really, I didn't really ever think of that part of it, even though it's kind of like along the lines of everything else I believe in. I didn't really, it takes somebody to show you sometimes. And then when you see certain things, you can't really forget them, you're just like, wow. So I know he takes a lot of heat because it's a new idea. And some people are just 100% flesh and blood, believers that they're just another species. But I tend to think
that's the hardest thing to do.
It is.
I don't know how anybody can be 100% flesh and blood.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think anymore anybody's 100% then.
I'd rather them say they don't exist. Like, tell me they don't exist. Don't tell me they're a hidden monkey.
Yeah.
That's the most stubborn. That's the most stubborn argument. It makes
it's like
I try not to be one of the guys that get mad about something paranormal that has zero evidence. But I'm like, there's no. Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah. There's no way. I mean, but it is. I mean, we really don't know much about our planet. We don't know the oceans. We only can see like this little sliver, Roy G. Biv, or the visible light. It's like red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. There it is, that little tiny sliver. And then the rest is all these wavelengths and frequencies we can't even see. We can only hear a certain sliver. We can't hear like infrasound or low, or, we can't hear high like a dog. We can't smell as much as animals on the planet. We're kind of like really walking around with a lot of filters on. So you just got to wonder what's behind all those filters, what's really out there.
And I kind of think that the government has cracked into the fourth dimension. I heard 20 years ago they already did.
Yeah.
I don't know who. I can't remember who I heard it from or who they heard it from.
Yeah. Like length, width, and height, 3D. But length, width, and height over time. So like you have your cube, but you have your cube then, and then you have your cube now, and then later. So that whole timeline of the cube is 4D. So like your hand in 4D would be, because one of the physicists I was asking about this, because he works, this isn't his field, but he actually works at B&L, and he worked at CERN and B&L in the atom smasher. So he's a particle physicist, but he's more interested in like quarks and gluons and all these things than most of these theories. But anyway, he said your hand, basically, to try to explain it, would look like a baby's hand in the middle, your teenager hand, your adult hand, and then your old man hand all at once, kind of like phased on top of each other. That would be your 4D hand, like you over time, basically. And it's a crazy thing to think about, but it's kind of cool in the same. A tesseract, like you said, is actually a 4D cube, and it's like this cube that always moves, and like the corners kind of protrude out like a spike, and it's just rotating. I don't know. It's hard to
what
even.
Would the fifth dimension be? Time?
That's a good question. I've thought of that. I have no clue, but maybe it's no space then. At that, if you have all time, maybe it's all space at that point, and you lose your shape, and now you're just existing in everywhere and every time. I don't know. I have no clue, man.
I just heard a little bit. I'm just wondering, like, if the military has gotten into the Veil where the cryptids hang out.
There's an interesting thing that
looked around.
Oh yeah, I think that they must have gotten through this first hurdle of getting into the fourth. That's like even maybe through time travel, because maybe once they left the time we're in, that would be somewhat piercing the fourth. So who knows how they did it or what? I mean, if that's even the case, but I believe that they've already found ways to at least try to see through it. But then again, you think about the government researchers at Skinwalker Ranch that were there through Bigelow before before now through forgetting his name, Brendan, is it? But anyway,
you're talking about the guy in the suit.
Yeah, the guy that owns, like, he's the new owner, but the previous one was Bigelow, and he had some government researchers there that were looking at these portals opening up, and they didn't really know what they were looking at either. So I wonder if but those were linked to things that sound like dogmen or sound like lichens, werewolves, or basically they seem to shapeshift and they seem to open these portals where they could jump, a short distance. The ones at Skinwalker Ranch, they talked about black portals opening up and they would kind of like come out of these and then they would close up. So maybe that's a whole nother thing going on out there. I don't know what the ties are to Bigfoot, but it was really interesting. Some people were talking about ancient Native American legends where there was a war between Bigfoot and dogmen or lichens or whatever they are, skinwalkers. What's the difference between skinwalkers and lichens or dogmen or werewolves? I mean, they're very similar.
Skinwalkers just like a Navajo rite of passage where you transform yourself into it. Skinwalker's a person.
Like a shapeshifter, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, yeah. It's just kind of like a werewolf.
Bigfoot are all just cryptids.
Yeah, so a werewolf is more like a skinwalker. It's closer. Yeah, closer because of the shape-shifting aspect. But there's a lot of things that sound very similar. And then the Wendigo is kind of similar in a way, in the sense that it's once a human. But then there's some interesting stuff about Cryptids that they were talking about, like in ancient Dead Sea Scrolls descriptions, that they were like these breed of kind of different, like blood drinking beings. So like vampires, which were like rakes and chupacabras, and then like shapeshifters, which were like lichens or I don't know, skinwalkers or something like that. And then there was a couple others, giants or Nephilim were one. And as they ate more blood, they got bigger and bigger, and they grew up to like 300 feet. Not the same red-headed giants you've heard of, or not the same, like all these different legends. I wonder if you combine all the legends, there's a lot of similarities. So like in the Norse legends, they had Fenrir, the wolf, and then there's the Anubis in Egypt, who was like the guardian of the dead, the underworld or another dimension. I don't know. I wonder if you just made a chart and like line them up, you could probably like find the same people in different, If
you did that in religions, there's probably just one thread.
Yeah. Oh, there's probably. I've read a couple, and I mean, there's so much out there still, though, because of making videos and stuff too. I've got to read a less and had to read a lot more of what I was doing at the moment. But Reddit can go down a rabbit hole too, and so,
yes,
Reddit
will ruin your day.
Yeah, you spend all day there.
Reddit will piss you off and take your whole day away. Like, it's 3 p.m. Like, it's time to go.
Yeah, those rabbit holes do it to me every time. But it's, Montauk has been my main one over the years. I must say, I always go back to that. And because it has like an umbrella over so many different things that it's satisfying enough to have, I could follow many, many angles, many directions. And
it's got so much history that you could, write like a regular, like real stuff that you found out. Then you could do like a fictional version. Then you could do like a prequel to the 1600s version. Yeah.
I've been writing for years, trying to make something into like organization is the hardest part of cutting down like you said, making it into parts and sections. I now have it by like sections. So I have like all my field reports in one, all the interviews in another, all of the military history in another. That's just like a straightforward. And a media, you know, all the pictures and stuff and maps. And then I have like in between a whole bunch of top secret stuff. I went to the county center and got the deed for the base, like the property deed, show when it was transferred and stuff. I just take a few pages out of each one that are interesting of some documents. And I'm forgetting if I missed one. Oh yeah. And then the main part of the book is like the chapters based on all these different topics, you know, and I kind of have that broken down. So now I have several tables of contents, and I'm like, I got to make this still refine it more, you know. But I've been working on it for so long, and I want to get it out before like the last season of Stranger Things, because at that point, you know, I want to get the people who really don't know a lot about it and try to give them like the basics, but also give them a whole bunch of just raw data to look at. So like you wouldn't really read it like a book except for the chapters that are like topics. The rest would be like a reference that you keep on your shelf. You want to know something, you just thought of something, you go grab it, go to the part and be like, okay, put it back. That's kind of want to make it like an encyclopedia of Montauk. You know
what that reminds me of? They put together like a history of Alabama football that was kind of like that, with lots of evidence. Not
that's evidence, cool.
But like you'd read like a page like an encyclopedia, and they would have like pictures and newspapers for it.
That's awesome. Yeah, backing evidence right there, you know.
It's kind of children. It's a big giant book, but it's like a children's book almost. But it's huge. It has like examples.
Oh, that's cool.
It'd almost be how you have to spoon feed Montauk to the general public.
You know, what you just said, like that's exactly what I was trying to say, and I forgot about. It's like a textbook in a way. It has like that little figure, you know, right there.
It's right here. Hang on.
Yeah. Okay. Cool, man. Take your time. I love books like that.
Oh my gosh.
So you don't have to go looking for another source.
It's right here. But
I appreciate you getting it.
I'm in my back room. Nice. Look, it's like.
Oh wow, man! Yes, I would love that.
You open it, and it has like.
That's so cool.
Like it's got like samples of what tickets look like.
Charts, everything.
Your pictures.
That's perfect. That's like what my collection is like, with all the different, you know, the variety of different information. You can't really.
The fact that it's got these old historical documents. Like,
oh, that's sick. I like how that's put together.
Like I wouldn't need something like this for Montauk, but the general public would.
Yeah. Well, still, it's like that entry book that even if you're a deep collector, you still get that book because it's got like just a nice way to present it, you know. And
plus, somebody's going to get it for you for Christmas if you don't.
Yeah, that's like a coffee table book. That one. It's got that nice cover. I would love that. I was looking into it, and the cover, all those things, like everything you add is so pricey, but I want to make it worth it. And I got an idea for some clear pages, like the human skeleton kind of. You ever see those books? You turn them and there's more layers. So I'm going to use that for a few things. So I'm looking that up and seeing how to do it. It's a lot of also trying to protect everything and make sure it's copyright. And the hardest part of this all is sourcing it all, because I use so many sources. Each chapter had like 16 sources, and it was like learning a MLA format. It's like a way to cite things. And
oh man, I know all about that.
It's like a lot of, then you start thinking legal things like, can I do this? Am I allowed to reprint top secret redacted documents? You know, but if you cite them, apparently you can do anything as long as you cite it. So, and it's in fair use, and it's not, you know, if it's for education, which it is, I think I could do almost everything I wanted to put in there. So
then when you publish it, some kid's going to go down to that cavern and get killed. And
yeah. I'll be the first. They'll be burning the books in piles.
I thought about that. Like, you should never publish that book.
Yeah. First he's going to go. It's funny. Somebody just got me a snake camera, so I'm thinking I could put it in there and check out what's down there one day. Maybe with a few people.
Get a big light for it.
Yeah, I got the awesome spotlight that I love. It's like an Amazon light, but I take it everywhere. It's one of these cheap lights, but the thing is so bright. It's like,
what brand is
it? I don't even know if it has a brand on it.
I got one that you could tell was made by like the underground Chinese factory.
That's what this seems like. And I even made this filter. It's half infrared and half ultraviolet. It's like 7 layers. Each one's painted and colored, and basically it gives you UV or ultraviolet light to work with the cameras that have like filters on them too. I use a floppy disk and a black and white negative from the darkroom that blocks each one of those. So I'm just playing around, but I figure if some of these things are in those wavelengths, if we could just block out the visible light, maybe we'll catch something cool one day.
Reminds me of that movie, The Quest.
The Quest. Oh, I gotta check it out.
That giant light. It had a kid from ET in it.
Oh, nice.
That's how old that is.
I'll check that out. Because I mean, it's all for fun. This stuff. It's not for serious science, obviously, or I wouldn't be making it myself like this. And
what's going to happen if you do discover something? That's going to be fun.
Oh my god, man! It'll probably just go on my channel, and the regular people will like it and say that's crazy, and then nobody else will see it. Probably that's probably
what's going to happen if there's like a real Bigfoot picture that's real, and one of them that's like a stupid drunk Bigfoot?
Yeah, I think it's just probably get overlooked. You know, probably even if it's on a show or two, people have a short attention span these days. I mean, because I feel like there's good stuff out there.
Yeah, there's a guy I was going to have on here tonight. He's a biologist, and he was going to be like a co-host, but he was at a Super Bowl party and was having a lot of fun. He didn't want to leave. I'm like, well, don't go. I mean, it's not life or death. He's not getting paid.
I forgot that
he had a guy on. He had a guy on from Alaska.
Oh wow!
Who researched Bigfoot way out there in the bush.
Wow!
And this guy wasn't fascinated with him. This guy was terrified of him.
Wow! Yeah.
He goes, I'm here to raise awareness, and he said that he had pictures that families wouldn't give up.
Wow. That's scary.
Like, come on, man.
That reminds me of the Yeti. Like, it never seems like a good description when you deal with the Yeti. It's like cold and angry because it's cold, or I don't know what the deal is, but they don't seem like even at the what is that place in Russia where those people, they think it was a Yeti too. That one, the Dadlov Pass
expedition.
Yeah, I think it's the
Dadlov. Showed them running buck naked through the
they're running for their lives in snow. But I've heard that, the Yetis are like the guardians of the underworld in Tibet and everything. And they were described as the fearsome guardians, basically. They didn't care what you thought. They were just like, stay away from the door, like almost like they were on that mission. And then you say something about the Alaskan ones not being, I mean, you said he's terrified of them. So maybe they're like the white furred, maybe it's a different species.
Yeah, Subarctic Bigfoot.
Wow.
Was the guy's channel, and he had him on there.
That's crazy. I gotta check that out.
This guy wasn't like Long Island Bigfoot or anything. This guy was not happy about the fact they were existing.
Yeah. There are a lot of people are definitely scared, and I wonder if there's so many different things. I just think there's so many things going on in the sky, in the woods. It's really hard to tell what you're dealing with some of the times. If you're seeing the same thing, if everybody's seeing the same kind of, dealing with the same kind of beings at all. I mean, what do you think about everything? I mean, do you think, pareidolia is the word is tossed around so much now. I don't think there's any way that everything people are seeing is pareidolia. I do believe in pareidolia. Like I used to find faces in the clouds.
Oh, yeah.
But think about, those video cameras in public when they see somebody and they put a square box around every face in the crowd. Well, like humans, maybe we have that too. But like they said, the first thing you see as a baby, you start recognizing the points on the human face so you could identify friend or foe. It's the first thing you learn. And we always we see a face. So like, what if like when we see like something in the woods that's there, but we can't see it, we see a face. And what if every time we see something, we put a face on it because that's what we've learned. It's like our box, like the camera has, except it's like doink, doink, doink face. So yes, you're seeing a face on things because it's familiar, but it's because there's actually something there, and that's our way of saying there's something here. I don't know. I've thought about it like maybe it's both. It's pareidolia because there is something there, or something like that.
I think it's some people are more sensitive.
Yes,
I think it's intention driven. Yeah, I do think it's real.
Those are good points. Yeah, those two things are just as strong a factor. Yeah, you're right. That's awesome.
We've got a girl that works with us, and she's not insane or anything. She's real trustworthy. But her mom was on this podcast, and her mom like sees ghosts in the medium.
Oh wow!
And the lady I work with, she had a shadow person follow her home from an actual ghost hunt.
Wow!
Told the story on here, and like we were sitting at lunch one day, everybody's having pizza buffet, and one of the new guys was there. Like, have you heard about what's her name's mom's story? And he's like, what are you talking about? And she's like, yeah. And she was kind of being quiet because she knew she was about to have to tell this damn story again to all these people. And he's like eating his pizza. He's a grown man, 30 years old or more, beard, eating pizza, staring. It's like, what? And she's telling him about this, and this. And then she's like, yeah, and a shadow person followed me home, and I saw this. And he's like, you saw it? And he's like looking at me. It's like, wait, really? and people that you know like that swear up and down that aren't lying. They're not lying. Like you look at it, it's like she's not lying to us.
Yeah.
This isn't shit. Something's out there. And that makes me happy and scared at the same time.
It does, because not everything is going to be friendly, and sometimes maybe like something that has like a neutral kind of vibe, you could get away with being humble, and then it might have some kind of code, or if things are just truly against you, then you're probably not going to be able to change that, and you should probably leave. So it's hard to judge what you're dealing with. There are things that probably want to help you.
Bigfoot thing so much.
What was the first part?
I said it may be why I like the Bigfoot thing so much, because it's like my favorite paranormal subject. Because the chances are, if you see one, you're not going to be hurt. Yeah,
they really do feel like they're trying to help out in some way or teach us something. I mean, the ones that from what I've seen, if you gift, which is the weirdest thing, and you know what? I learned it by going with Mike and stuff, but I wasn't in the habit of doing it, right? So yesterday we went to Montauk, and I figured, let me just bring some things to leave here just for the heck of it, right? And because I have had good experiences with gifting. In fact, I feel like I got gifts back right away. Even on our first trip, I bought a coin with an Indian headdress, and I never went like squatching before. And that's me and my wife went with Mike, and that was like one of our first couple videos. And there was like an Indian headdress, and I left it on a log. It was a silver coin. I paid for it on like eBay or something. And I went out around the lake, and by the time I got there, I was stopped for a second to look down, and there was this giant falcon feather, 14-inch falcon feather, just laying across my boot. So I'm like, whoa, this is weird, because I left a feather, and my wife, Danielle, was talking about mushrooms all day, because she like loves mycology. And there was this mushroom sitting right by the feather in a branch between two trees, like, the trees were like this. Where's the camera? And it was just sitting in the crook of like two trees. A whole mushroom, like it was picked perfectly. So I thought that was strange. So then since then, I've gotten some weird stuff. I work on like Apple computers because I was doing graphics and websites for years. And recently I got like a tracking device, an Apple tracking device. It was just laying on the log. And as soon as I picked it up, it started going off. And I got like that on video. Then we heard a vocal, and I got an EVP. So that was like something that seemed like a gift. But just yesterday, it was me and my wife. We weren't planning on doing any one thing like military history or squatching. We were just going to the base. We hadn't been there in months, but I did bring a few things to leave. One was like this cheap feather, like copper looking feather necklace that came in the mail for something. Like I forgot who donated to something, and we got this, but it's something you might have seen. It's like a cheap feather in the mail. And I brought that and put it in my backpack, and I'm there. And then right off the bat, we got lost, but Danielle got pulled this way, and she found this big, like, I don't know if it's an owl or a hawk. We were trying to figure it out. It's about this big, and it was like a beautiful, perfect feather. And then we were talking about how we only got one, and we turned the corner, and there was like this other one, a huge one. So then I realized, I'm like, wait, I brought a feather as a gift, when we already got one back, so I left it there. I just thought it's a little coincidental each time, like we do this. It seems to be related to it's not always a feather. There's other examples I'm forgetting, but they're on my videos and stuff. But I always feel like leave it, for the animals, or leave it for if it's food, or just leave it for another explorer who might find it in the woods, even if Bigfoot doesn't find it. It's just a cool thing to leave a gift.
The symbolic gifting
is, yeah.
They say is safe, but the living in peanut butter is not.
Oh yeah, well that will attract all kinds of things. Yeah.
And like it's the what's the guy's name? Project Sasquatch from Colorado.
Okay.
He says that can cause like bad things if you do it too much.
Okay. Like certain foods.
Yeah, like it'll get like the Bigfoot that want to be fed, like the bad ones. It sounds crazy as hell to talk about like this, but he's somebody he says that. But then drag your mouse over to my friend Randy that lives in Minnesota, who also isn't lying. He's not lying.
Yeah,
not lying about it. Says that he sometimes gets turned around on his own property.
I believe that.
And that's the one thing that Zeus from Project Sasquatch says is if you go doing this shit,
you
start feeling a bad headache or start feeling dizzy or disoriented, get the hell out. And Randy feels this every few weeks. Wow. I said, you may have a bad one up there. Fucking with you.
Yeah, because like they try usually. We were just talking about that in the chat. I think how they, it's considerate. They try not to, I guess, zap you by looking directly at you. But if you're just getting it when you're walking, that means you're being targeted. Why would one? There's always a bad one. Like if you look at if supposedly like, angels or Nephilim, even the angels or whatever they were, there were 200 of them, and they were rebels, so they were being there's always somebody in the group that's going to be that way, and
I compare it
Bigfoot
to the grizzly man.
Oh yeah,
grizzlies entered the camp.
Oh man,
and then his journal stopped getting entered.
This is there's so many things. Like I still watch sometimes the top 10s, and like there's so many cryptids I don't even, when I see them, it's for the first time, and some of the videos are actually impressive, but I don't know where. Pukwudgie, yeah, those are another. Oh my god, man, the Bridgewater Triangle. Well, how you were saying Long Island is weird. I was just talking to Mike about Glacial Hills, LIB, because we were like on one at that point, and there's like this moraine that goes through Long Island. Actually, two of them. They're like a backbone. It's where the glacier is, like the Great Wall in Game of Thrones. It was like 1,000 feet wall of ice. It stopped once, left a pile of like a mountain ridge on Long Island. It's just hills. It's not a mountain, but it's like a ridge, and all the way through it, like really dense, deposited all the rock, and then it stopped again. So it left two of these, and then it receded all the way. But on these two places where it stopped, there's like a lot of quartz and basalt and rock and like so energy and weird stuff is what I'm getting at. And this top moraine that we were on, it's called like the Roanoke Moraine, and it goes all the way across Long Island off the top peninsula, and it goes over Plum Island and connects all the islands to Connecticut, and then it goes through the Bridgewater Triangle in Massachusetts. So the Bridgewater Triangle, Plum Island, and the top north shore of Long Island are all on the same glacial moraine.
Are you an expert on the, not an expert, but like knowledgeable on the Bridgewater Triangle?
No, not very much. I saw the documentary. I've talked to DHP, with Dark Hour Paranormal, who has interviewed those guys and been there. But other than that, I love the story. Oh yeah,
that question has a part two.
Cool.
I was going to get him. I've got actually three. Somehow I've got in this Massachusetts pocket of people.
Oh, cool.
I've got three guys who are just Bridgewater Triangle, hook, line, and sinker. Dark Hour being one of them.
Okay, yeah.
I was going to say if you are, you can be on the panel.
Oh, I don't know enough, but thank you, man. That's awesome.
I'm sure you wouldn't hate being on the panel talking to them.
Oh no, that'd be cool.
Gather them all up.
Yeah. I know some of it, and in fact, we always talk about the Pukwudgie incident with the guy who was walking his dog, because it just stuck with us for years. The way the Pukwudgie like beckoned him, he was like, "Come here." He said, "Kia, come quickly." He's telling the guy to come over here quickly, like come to me. The little Pukwudgie standing in the shadows, and this guy's walking his dog, and this thing's telling him, trying to talk human as it can, going, "Come here, like quickly."
Yeah, they use.
I would be like, "Hell no."
I've heard people talking. I've heard more than one person saw one.
Yeah, there's
using funny language.
In the Will of the Wisp, that's supposedly an ancient myth, but that seems to be tied with the Pukwudgies. Like they have dancing lights that could kind of disorient you. They're kind of tricksters. Like the Native Americans didn't always say they were bad. At one point they got along with them, but then something happened and they started a war, and they were like doing pretty vicious things to each other. So, but they're very. Yeah, it's there's a lot of other things there. What's that rock where everybody jumps off? The ledge, the suicide ledge or something. And then there's like, there's alien. Every Bridgewater Triangle seems to have everything. It's one of those places that. So it's fascinating. I'll read up on it too, because you piqued my interest. But he has a guy called Frapsap that is going there all the time doing stuff, and I think that's who he did the documentary with, Dark Hour Paranormal. So. But yeah, I'm interested always in everything like that. I always have been since I was a kid. So I'd love to be on anything.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm kind of how your talents when you do something will plateau.
Yeah.
And like you're not getting any better. You just need to add some. I think I'm gonna add panels to my repertoire. Now that I've got getting guests semi down.
Yeah.
I've got a routine semi down. Add some panels. Panels is what's fun. I don't give a shit. I can sit back.
I've never been on one. I'd like to be on one because
I can just do this for a panel.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's it's cool because you could gather your thoughts, a little more as other people take the turn, and then you can make a note.
Basically just like surrender the floor and the next person goes.
Yeah, that's cool too, because if you could run on for a few minutes, then you could take a break, but it's also great for the viewer because they get to see rotation of just awesome people with their best thoughts at that moment coming back around.
I did one for Thanksgiving, and it was the most amazing show. I was like, I want this every freaking week.
Nice.
I had Long Island on here. I had UFO Man Tim Dust.
Nice.
I had 4 or 5 others. I mean,
I have to go back and check that out.
The free StreamYard was full. I was like, one person comes on here, I got to kick them off. I got to call my guest.
So you have like an open spot for somebody that could pop in or something like that?
Well, it was. I sent everybody the link. I mean, everybody.
Okay, cool.
Because it was the night before Thanksgiving, and nothing was going on. Like I was bored as shit. Like something's got to happen.
Yeah.
And it went on for 2.5 hours, I think, maybe 3.
Nice, man.
And people were like, I've never told this story before, but I'm like, what the fuck is happening?
But just for tonight.
Oh
That's
yeah,
so cool.
and people with like 1 million followers were coming on.
Wow.
I'm talking. It was great. Tim Dust. Probably doesn't have a million. He's got a ton.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. That's a great idea.
You can't get him on a show, but he was like, okay, whatever. It's Thanksgiving. I'll do it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
He had his UFO books out, holding up like this. I'm like, whoa.
I'm gonna have to check that out. It sounds awesome.
If you look on my channel, it's the
like the main
video with the turkey on it.
Okay. I could find it because I go to videos and scroll back and I just look at them all.
Oh, you just go to my lives. It's got a turkey. You can't miss it.
Okay, cool. That'll be easy.
Intense. Well, I appreciate you being on here, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. It's always I might have been a little scattered to start one topic, but there's just so much we could do it again sometime or talk
made
again.
It very easy for me. I was listening.
Oh, cool, man. If you think so, that's awesome. Then I
tried to be cross-legged on the floor at one point. Like, yes, come on, more.
Okay, cool.
Tell me about the Montauk.
Yeah, it's a favorite topic, but I mean, we could also go elsewhere too. I'm always happy to go into the unknown, anything like that. So that's my favorite thing. Yeah, this is an awesome platform, and I hope I like trying new stuff. I think it's a good idea, like what you're going to do.
I throw it up on the audio portion too for people to listen to when they drive.
That's perfect.
I'm getting found a little bit there, more so than used to. That's what I really wanted to do, but with the YouTube being a bonus, but the YouTube seems to be more fun.
It is fun, yeah. There's a lot of great people that you will probably meet, and but the audio platform, that's a brilliant idea. I mean, I'd like to do that someday, but I'm not sure how I do it.
It's free and easy.
What is it called?
It's called Anchor.
Anchor, okay.
Yeah,
cool.
You take your video file and upload it, and it turns it audio.
Oh, okay, that's awesome.
Nothing to it.
I'm gonna write that down.
It distributes it out to all the platforms for you. Excellent. You don't have to do anything.
There we go. I'm gonna check it out because I got a lot of music in them and stuff, but it'll work out because I'll make it something original. It's Montauk based.
It's extremely. It's an afterthought, to be honest. Put it on audio. As this gets done, I do the video file and I put it on Anchor with the same label, and I just forget about it. I don't do anything else to it.
That's awesome for everybody driving out there because I spend a lot of time behind the wheel, man. And sometimes
goes to iTunes, goes to Google Podcast, goes to Spotify.
Awesome. That's definitely the way to get it out there. Those are the main platforms. So, man, awesome luck with growing and getting more and more stuff. Are you looking to do more interviews, or are you just trying to do scale it back?
2 or 3 a week.
2 or 3 a week. So
in April, I'm going to start doing posting 2 shows a week.
So the panel will be like in addition to those.
It's going to be like probably a Sunday.
Okay, cool. That's awesome. I like to watch it too.
Thursday I'm going to keep Thursday as the priority. So if something happens and I can't do one on a Sunday, so what?
Awesome.
But I'm going to try to do 2 a week.
Excellent. And if I see somebody that's that you just gotta talk to, I'll send them your way to give you a shout.
I'll reach out to somebody in a heartbeat.
Awesome. Yeah.
All right, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you for having me. I always appreciate it. And
thanks for watching, everybody.
Enjoy the rest of the weekend, which is only like a few hours.
Oh yeah, it's not even good.
Thank you for watching.